Hello, everyone. Welcome to the eCommerce podcast. Today, we're at Mondelēz World Headquarters with Global VP and Head of eCommerce, Jie Cheng. Jie, welcome to the show, and thanks for accepting us today.
And first, I would say congratulations, Mert, for launching this podcast, and thank you for inviting me as one of your early guests. And welcome to the Mondelēz headquarters. It's a lovely office. You know, we have a lot of artwork, and hopefully we can take some pictures later on as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. And of course, it's our pleasure. It's my personal pleasure to be here with you as one of the first guests and where we're launching the show, because we've worked together in the past, and you're one of my few mentors I respect and admire dearly. And thank you very much for your time with us today. So, as I said, I worked in Mondelēz in the past. Jie was one of my stakeholders and also dotted line manager. So we had a lot in common, and I learned a lot from Jie. So it's also a privilege for us, for myself, having Jie on the show and sharing her insights and leadership experience with the audience at the eCommerce. Thank you one more time. So with this, let's kick it off. You have a tremendous career, and I know you worked in brilliant brands in the past. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of your career journey and share some highlights, how you got here and what's on the horizon? Jie, please.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah. So maybe first, let me quickly introduce my current role first,
Yes.
right? And a little bit about myself, and we can certainly talk about my career journey. Yes, it spans 25 years now, you know, in corporate America. So in my current role as a global head of digital commerce at Mondelēz, you know, my team and I, we are responsible for setting the long-term and the short-term strategies and growth agenda for the company. But also, meantime, we're also making sure we're delivering on our annual global revenue target, right? It's very important. And in the meantime, also building capabilities to win the future of commerce, because this space continues to evolve, right? It's very important. In addition, I also serve as an internal advisor to our executive team for anything about digital commerce, and engage with the board of directors on digital commerce topics as well. On the personal side, I grew up in China, and in Zhejiang province. I came to US in '98 to pursue my MBA at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. Now it's part of ASU. It's based in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
But since then, I've been living in both the United States and Canada. I most time in US, but I did spend a few years in Toronto as well. I actually got my first full-time job at 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, Canada at the time, as a financial analyst.
Really?
So I will quickly get into my journey now, right? So, but for the most part of my corporate life, I spend time, you know, across quite a few consumer goods companies, from 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, as I mentioned, 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐬, and they have household brands like 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 as well. Then also Philips, North America. And I spent a majority of my time actually in food companies. Was in Danone for a while, and then also Hershey, Campbell Soup, before I joined in Mondelēz, right? And my role has been more focused on digital marketing and e-commerce in my 25 years journey. So you can say to some extent I witnessed, also actively contributed to the remarkable evolution of digital marketing and e-commerce in the business, right? Now you asked the question about my career journey, right? So I think one thing I would say, each of the roles I take, I did worked in quite a few companies in the past, right? Each of the roles I take, they're usually a pivotal moment why I take that role, right? Now starting, so for 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, for example, as I mentioned, I was in the corporate finance, but in 2004, I was presented as this great opportunity. At the time, actually, I didn't recognize that. I turned it down, actually. But the person who reached out to me was a 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤's CMO, Frank Lindsay. He's very fully retired apparently now, right? He was looking for someone to figure out how to sell hairdryer online. This is 2004, remember, this is before Facebook, before YouTube, you know, and Amazon, was majority of the people mainly use Amazon to buy books
Correct.
at the time, right?
Right.
So e-commerce was pretty much still in its very early stage, infancy, I would say. So I would give Frank also the credit of being a pioneer. I was thinking about that. And I said, I know nothing about e-commerce, right? And he said, well, I can't find anyone in the industry anyway, because nobody who knows this, right? I better to give it to someone who is curious, and also know the company business, know the business of 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤. So I think that bit of persuasion kind of sparked my curiosity. That's kind of how I started in e-commerce.
Spearheading e-commerce for 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤.
For 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, right. And I learned a ton. It's really learning by doing.
True.
If there's one principle, it's learning by doing. I remember the time we launched the direct-to-consumer for 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 hairdryer. The 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 store, I think it's still existing today. This is launched in 2004.
Store foundation.
Yeah, store foundation. And also listing product on Amazon, right? And not many CPG companies at the time listing product on Amazon to sell, right? So we were being really one of those first movers in the space. But more importantly, I learned the craft. Of course, it changed a lot since all these years. But at that time, I have a hands-on experience with search, how to manage the pay-per-click, doing email campaigns, run display ads for Google, but also when Facebook and YouTube took off, we were one of the first to start leverage social media to reach the consumers. And I still remember the YouTube channel we created at the time, create how-to video, which is really the very early on when we did that. Like, think about 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, how a lot of the hair dryers, how to style your hair with curling iron. We were one of those first to produce videos, to use YouTube as one of these channels to reach the consumers, basically. So we did a lot of that. So a lot of this is about build something ground up. There's really no playbook. It's about test learn. It's about being like scrappy.
Trailblazing.
Yeah, trailblazing. So a lot of that. So that kind of 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 gave me the foundation, digital marketing and e-commerce. So I think I learned a lot from that role. I spent 6 or 7 years in that role to really learning the craft, also evolving with the industry as well. So that's kind of the early on. Do you want me to continue to talk about that?
We're going to come to the transition moments.
Yeah.
But it's really remarkable doing all this groundbreaking work at 2004, to your point, where
between
search...
2004 to 2010, I would say.
Search wasn't in its maturity yet. Amazon wasn't as a main channel for omnichannel commerce yet. This is really remarkable. Which brings me to our next conversation, next topic, because 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, Hershey, Philips, Campbell Soups, and now Mondelēz. These are all globally big guns, important brands in our portfolio, in our industry. But where did you see the transition moments? Where did you see the next wave in this journey that triggered you to make the move or take an opportunity, define your career journey? What transitions were those for you?
Yeah, great question. This is something I would be very passionate about, and maybe this is a good segue about 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 to why I moved to Danone was the next move for me. So 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤, I think I see the value of being a pioneer in digital transformation. Right. From 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 to Danone was, remember that this is 2010. I joined Danone, and it's a yogurt company, and I don't think that e-com for yogurt was ready at that time. It was more about digital marketing. As a matter of fact, it's not called digital marketing, it's called internet marketing mostly, or web marketing, right?
Of course.
The terminology also evolved quite a bit. And the social influencer was taking off the time.
Yes.
So I joined Danone. One thing is I feel like I'm ready for a different role, but also the opportunity. Danone at the time was launching their Greek yogurt brand, 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐤.
Oh, yes.
Which is a major mega launch for Danone, because I think Chobani at the time was ahead of the yogurt in that, Greek yogurt now as apparently very well established. And 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐤 was another brand, but Danone and also Yoplait, I believe both the bigger brands were a little behind. So for me, the opportunity working on a mega launch for a big company like Danone was a great opportunity. So I was leading the digital campaign to supplement the broader yogurt launch. We leveraged, for example, the influencer marketing at the time was pretty early in its time as well, right? To do sampling, right, via digital platform to reach our shop consumers, but also creating YouTube teasers for Danone's first ever in the company history for the Super Bowl ad.
Oh, yeah.
This was with John Stamos as still at the time in 2012 they launched that. So I was a part of that. So for me, the opportunity to work on mega launch using digital platform as one of the way for digital storytelling to have a integrated marketing campaign, really looking at the digital channel as one way to connect with the consumer. That is one big opportunity,
Sure.
So that's a big transition for me, and it's an opportunity. Now, from Danone to Hershey, this is 2012, I moved from Danone to Hershey. The main reason I joined Hershey was the role was presented to me as basically the leader, the head of international markets for digital marketing. It was completely new role. There's no such presence at the time in the company to do digital marketing for international markets. And for me, the most attractive part of the role is the opportunity to work in China. Because as I mentioned, I grew up in China. I know the language and know the culture. And one key moment was very intriguing for me to work on. China at the time just was taking off with Alibaba, accelerating with e-com, right? I feel this is a great opportunity to learn, to know, and be part of the evolution of the digital space for e-com and for digital marketing.
Right.
That's kind of how I took a role, which is also my first global role, by the way, at Hershey. I moved my family. We relocated to Hershey, Pennsylvania as well, the sweetest place on earth, so we call it, right? So I did work on some of the U.S. campaign as well, but that was one of the main reasons I joined Hershey. Similarly for Campbell Soup, I joined Campbell also because of global role. It's a broader remit. It's a step up from my role at Hershey, and also e-commerce was a focus at Hershey. Was digital marketing was a focus.
True.
So my role a lot of time is it's always cover both, because you can't do commerce without digital marketing.
No way anymore.
Yeah, and the digital marketing certainly serves the commerce goal, right? So my role at Hershey was more focused on digital marketing, but the Campbell Soup role. And I actually never worked on soup business. I worked on Goldfish, the snacks business.
Right.
So I hired as a global lead for the snack business to launch its e-commerce business both in China as well as in US. We put Goldfish on Amazon, and I become actually still the number one leader. Now I kind of become the competition for Mondelēz now, right? How do we making sure we're also growing,
Laying out the early ranges of the competition ahead. Okay.
Yeah. So sorry, my colleagues who are listening from Campbell Soup, that's something we did very well, and kudos to the team continue to hold the ground very strong, right? Create a challenging for Mondelēz to overcome at the moment. But in the cracker sector, so those kind of, is there anything I can talk about the transition? Yes, each role there's a pivotal moment. Yeah.
Now, fast forward today, we're in Mondelēz, and you're leading many different initiatives in the global digital commerce environment of Mondelēz. And fortunately, I was part of some of those projects in the past when I was working in the company. Mondelēz is known for many successful digital transformation initiatives. One I can recall was Empathy at Scale, where Mondelēz was using trillion data points in partnership with Google Cloud, and they were personalizing the creatives and the content for social media campaign. Can you share a couple of good digital transformation campaigns at Mondelēz that you were part of or you were leading that we can share with the industry peers?
Yeah, I would give all that personalization, or later called empathy at scale, that credit to John Harrison and his team.
Yep.
So that the consumer experience team, basically they are leading, also including the media team leading the transformation of that. So my answer to your part is probably more focusing on the digital commerce side, the transformation we're doing, But to answer the question, maybe go back a little bit also why I joined Mondelēz as well.
Please.
One of the reasons actually I joined Mondelēz, first I joined at the peak of pandemic. July 2020, right?
Yes.
So but,
Everywhere is on fire.
Yeah, it's the whole world was in lockdown, and actually many of my friends and former colleagues was kind of doubt my sanity about taking this role, completely working without seeing a soul in person, right? For one full year, literally.
Yes.
You know, I think you are one of the person I met in my only time. Finally, the world opened up.
In Manhattan, right?
Yeah, the vessel.
We took the photo in front of the vessel during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's one of the early time. But the reason I joined Mondelēz, I was actually at Philips at the time. One of the reason is, you know, I like to think everything, the bad or good happens. There's always, especially something negative like a pandemic. Apparently it's a terrible thing, right? But there's always a silver lining. One of the silver lining is the acceleration of e-commerce in grocery space, because we know grocery is a slow adoption of e-com, you know, in the space. Actually, one of the reasons I joined Philips, I was saying I'm done with food now. It's so still 2% of total business. Nobody pay attention to it, right? So when Mondelēz reached out at the time, I said, wow, I really think this is a moment I'm going to ride this wave of acceleration of e-com in grocery. I'm going to make an impact on the company, but also broader industry. That's really my vision at the time from when I took the job. And apparently the company, Mondelēz, brought me in to do two things mainly. First, capture the channel growth as everybody shopping online, right, during the pandemic. That's very important. So ensure we're really capturing the growth, the channel shift, right, and also the growth in the channel. Second, take it to the next level, right? The Mondelēz at the time is also already have a pretty substantial business. It's shy of $1 billion, but it's 700 million, if I can share the number, right? Roughly that. So it's a pretty sizable. But the company, we do believe it can be much bigger given the size of the company, right? So how do we drive that? So for me, that kind of a good challenge to take on. So when I joined, this is something, first thing I needed to define what's the next step looks like. What's the next level looks like, right? So that's the time my team and I, with our partners, agency partners, also launched the Digital Commerce Vision 2030. So basically we pick a picture by 2030, what the digital commerce will look like. So you need to pick that inspiring picture. It potentially raise some eyebrow as well because it needs to be stretch goal.
Stretch the horizon in the organization as well.
Exactly, from the digital commerce perspective, but also not completely crazy because it need to be credible. If it's completely crazy, people feel like there's no way we can achieve that. So the goal is really shoot for the moon, but if you miss it, you still land with the stars, right? That type of thinking. So we define that, and we also really lay out a clear action plan, where to play, how to win, and get the management buy-in, which is very important because the first thing you need really the organization and management need to buy in. So we actually also got the board sign off, right? That's kind of the first step of digital transformation. You need to have a vision, have the senior management aligned, you know, and globally, basically, or the enterprise-wide. Then you quickly move to implementation. To implement the strat plan, you need to make sure, I would say it's a blend of people, process, technology, or tools, right?
Right.
People, you need to put the right leaders in the critical roles. So, for example, for Mondelēz, the top markets, which e-com more mature, we need to have the right people. So we brought in people like Francisca Han, which apparently also very well known in the industry, but also a few other leaders as well. So all the right people in the critical roles to drive the business, but also reimagine some of the process. So for example, the commercialization process usually take 2 years, right?
Of course.
For e-com, it's too long, right? So let's think about it, you know, but we need to have the right fit for purpose commercialization process for the assortment, for example. And also some of the established process like creative brief. You know, do you always capture the digital shelf needs in your creative brief? So some of these process we need to rethink and making sure we're really implementing it. And the tools, some of the tools you also worked on, right? The DAM, the PIN, right? But also the digital shelf measurement tool, how we really making sure it's consistently deployed across the world as much as we can, right? And we also make sure the way we set up the organization is also taking into consideration e-commerce omni-channel as well, right? So it's not siloed, it's really embed how we execute the campaign. Do JBP is one voice, online, offline, right? So all this we need to make is part of the transformation. Some other thing I can also mention is, for example, I mentioned we need to put a critical role in key markets, but it's also important we are accelerate of all the other e-com starting to emerge, becomes relevant, smaller markets, right? So we expand to the markets outside the core markets. So today we are active in 50 markets globally, which e-com is pretty meaningful for the business, right? And we launch new platforms, like new business models for online gifting, for example, right? I don't know if you worked on that one, but capture really the online gifting space.
I'm familiar with Oreo D2C business.
Yeah, that's
and it was a real success. And I shoot some videos and shared what I use Oreo cookies for my wife's anniversary or my wife colleagues' anniversaries. It's amazing success.
It's not your everyday cookie Oreo. It's a personalized Oreo.
Absolutely.
You can put whatever message you want to use, and it's fun. It's a great brand, right? For sure. D2C is one of the online gifting strategy as well. But we also launched, for example, B2B, how to digitizing the way we service our traditional trades, right? Leveraging the digital platforms. We partner with AB InBev, for example, right? And we formed a global partnership with Delivery Hero, for example, one of our partner for last mile delivery, right? And early on, we also work with 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐤, right? With dialed down a little bit, but we still have partnership with them in the markets which is relevant for Turkey, for example. And China's Meituan, which is, So we do a lot of this partnership. This is part of the transformation as well. What else? I think one other thing I can also mention is with building this growth acceleration team, we call the GET, which is a part of that journey as well. You need to have your global digital commerce leaders, so the BU leaders, folks like Maria Mojica, you probably know her,
Latin America,
Lucia Ronchi,
Europe,
for Europe. So all these folks, and apparently Francesca as well, all these people, and also cross-functional team, right? So we assemble a growth acceleration team. And we meet quarterly. Actually, tomorrow I have a session to lead as well for 4 hours, or in person for 3 days, right? To advance our agenda. Like this is really about eye for the future. How do we making sure we're really, problem solving the challenges, but also set up for the future, to win the future. So those are things we do as well. And we have global forums for different subjects, right? There's a last mile forum that Abhishek is leading, right?
Hi to Abhi.
As well. We have Amazon forum that 𝐭𝐮𝐧𝐤 is leading, right? So we have a lot of those forums as well. And we have global town hall quarterly. I'm sure you joined some of them when you were here too, right? To realize the organization. I think it's really, when you drive transformation, you need to make sure your up management is on it, giving you the support needed, but also really the organization, every level as well. The team, right? The cross, not just the digital commerce team, but also the cross. It's one. I always call it hashtag team sport. It's one team. We drive together. Actually, this is also something I just remember I should mention as well. Upskilling is very important for digital transformation as well. One thing we do very well, this is like in my second year here, we launched an enterprise-wide digital commerce upskilling initiative. I always use this Alvin Toffler's quote: "The illiterate is not about you can't write or read, it's about you can't learn or unlearn or relearn." So learn, unlearn, relearn. That is like a principle, making sure we learn, we unlearn, we relearn, and which means we making sure our workforce are future ready, right? We give them the tools, they are equipped with the necessary skill set to run digital commerce online, but also not just in store, but they also know how to manage the online digital shelf, right?
It
It's
is.
everybody's job, right? Marketing needed to think about the digital shelf, for example, or think about the e-com assortment for this particular channel, right? Or think about the retail media, for example, right?
Yes.
So all that. So the upscaling or reskilling initiative is critical. We partner with our enterprise learning team, right? The people's team to drive that. And one very proud moment for us last year in 23, we won the Organizational Excellence Award for the Future Award.
That's important event, yeah.
It's a very prestigious award we won. So the team was very proud and give everybody around the world for this recognition as well. It's really a team sports. I'm pausing here because this is a lot. We apparently did tons of the things in the last 3 years, but it does take a village. It's also cross-functional apparently and take time. So you need to be patient about that too.
But it also takes another big trait, which I want to talk about now. It also takes leadership. Because what you're talking about here, and I'm sure many of us, many peers, many colleagues of us work in a similar enterprise environment, it's not easy to move the spaceship in this agile environment. I love the quote, by the way, you just shared with us: learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's a daily practice in e-commerce and digital commerce, but you are getting alignment of the stakeholders and executive leadership of the company. Then you're transforming this big initiative, long-term project into a very fast-moving team, diverse team, distributed across multiple markets. This requires leadership, and this requires buy-in of those teams to make them follow, and make them execute. Can you share some of the, by the way, for those people, I'm sure Jie is a very well-known leader in our industry, but someone who worked and had privilege working with her in person. Jie has a very subtle leadership style, and she encourages people to see the horizon, beyond the horizon, and everybody gets excited in the projects we're working on. So I really appreciate this kind of leadership style from my own personal reasons. I really like that methodology. But I want to hear from you. As leading this global organization at the helm in the digital commerce domain, what leadership traits did you put on the field? Did you share with the team to believe the vision and execute successfully to bring this enterprise spaceship together?
Yeah, for sure. So over the years, I actually have been reflecting on the leadership style, which also embody my personal traits as well, right? I would summarize in 3 words, and I call it my 3I leadership style, right? The 3 words is, every word starts with I. The innovation, inclusivity, then impact.
Right.
So those are kind of the 3 ISM. Innovation, I just shared quite a bit, because at the heart of digital commerce, it is about innovation. It's about pushing the boundaries, right? And pushing boundaries and always explore new ways for growth, for efficiency, right? Whether it's about building new digital capabilities or launching new business models or expanding to new markets, right? It is about innovation. How do you be resourceful to think about innovative way to drive the business growth? And I want also making sure my team is really at the forefront of that too. So they are really at the cutting edge of this marketing trends as well. So they are empowered to explore new ways of working. So I have a lot of folks in the team. I'm very fortunate to work with them. They are really forward-thinking. Abhishek quite a bit. He's a very forward-thinking guy, right? So in this space as well. So that is one, the innovation. When it comes to inclusivity, I'm truly a believer, and a part of this is also I had this in my 3rd global role I'm in, right? I had it in Hershey, in Campbell Soup, now Mondelēz. Global perspective, which also you look at different markets. How do you learn from each other? And I truly believe being inclusive, being really have this holistic view, look at others, look at different viewpoints. It creates more innovative thinking as well, right? But also the collaboration. Our team are very collaborative. They would like to, I think the world we are living in, it becomes even more important for be able to collaborate, right? So inclusion or inclusivity fosters that collaboration, fosters that creative thinking as well, right? So that's one. The third one is about impact. I just mentioned one quote, and the other quote is also one of my favorite, and I'm really believing in that, right? I love this quote from Albert Einstein. Strive not to be a success, instead to be a value. And that to me, I think the way I interpret it is success means different things for different people, right? But to me, the value means, and I really use it as a leadership guiding principle as well. Basically means everything you do, when you find something, making sure you always leave it in a better place.
Right.
You add value to it. Right. So that's to me is a principle. So that's kind of guide the way of doing. How do I add value? How do I make impact in the things I do, or whether it's about business results, or do I make it better in a place? So I think that kind of is a guiding principle. I think it's how do you make an impact in the things you do? But it's not just about business results. For me, it's equally important. Do I help my team also to become a better digital marketer or better e-commerce professional, right? And how do they really advance? Also personally, how do I make myself not just professional, but also personally better today than yesterday, right? So that's kind of how I see it. If there's one trait I would think I have, it's really my passion about learning. I love learn. I think, Mert, you share that as well.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah, the passion about learn and the passion about exploring new things, that serves me well. So I always be very curious about the world, right? But also be innovative, be in the forefront of a lot of things, explore new ways of working, for example.
I really like these 3 I words, for instance, innovation, inclusivity, and the impact. And which brings me another reality of our jobs, regardless of our role, regardless of the company. At the end of the day, everything we do is generating value and also bringing business impact.